All right, here we go. Just wanted to, first of all, welcome everybody and thank you for coming to tonight's presentation. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again and get the presentation up. But I really want to share with you that being an official, you're going to take bits and pieces of what I tell you and you're going to make it your own. I was told by a great Pac-12 official, Roscoe Mosenheimer, he's my mentor. He's got, I believe he's 12, 13 years in now at doing Division I football. He was my mentor, and I really recommend that everybody grab a mentor. Ask somebody to help you, ask somebody to mentor you, ask somebody tons of questions, latch onto that one person who can make that significant difference. Things I'll talk about tonight are things I've learned from him. And believe me, not everything I do is going to work for everybody. What it will do is hopefully set you on the path to be successful. You know, that's kind of the key. Moving forward, the umpire, aside of knowing the rules and understanding the rules, you know, the umpire needs to understand the role, and they need to know what everybody on the crew's role is. Being a good crewmate is like being a double-edged sword. You got to trust your crew knows the rules, but not afraid to correct them and when they're wrong, and also accept it when you're wrong. We're never always going to be perfect out there. And it takes, in football, in high school football, it takes 5 people to be really successful. I was once told that you need to learn just a fifth. If everybody does their 1/5, man, we're going to be stellar. And remember that, because if you walk out there confident knowing what you're doing and what you can contribute, the crew is going to be successful. The referee, you know, I look at the game as a business. That's how I approach it. You know, I supervise hundreds of people every day in my regular job. And I was told once by an umpire that, you know, this is like a business. The referee is the game administrator. His job, you know, it's your job as the umpire to make him or her look good so they can focus on communication and being the face of the crew. The coaches in the crowd are the only ones that are going to hear the referee. They're not going to hear us when we're doing our deal, but they're always going to hear the referee. They're always going to see the referee. It's your job to make sure that that game administrator can focus on what he or she's doing. The umpire, as the umpire, you are the manager of the crew. You create the expectations in the middle of the field. Your loud voice, your directives to the players, and your overall communication to the crew is the key to the success of the experience. Let me tell you, because of your hustle and knowledge, you create the upbeat tempo, which will benefit the flow of the game. If you walk and don't hustle, the tempo of the game will drag. There's an old common thing. Oh, he's new. We'll put him in the middle. We'll hide him there. Believe me, if you have an umpire that doesn't know what they're doing and walks and drags, that game will last forever. It'll take forever to get the ball on the ground. And remember this, when you're trying to get the ball on the ground and taking forever, the coaches really aren't worried because the ball's not on the ground. If the umpire is taking forever to set the ball, get out of the way, that gives that umpire or gives that coach on your sidelines a little more time to dig into you. Take my word for it. The umpire sets the tempo of the game, you know, but you have to do it cautiously. You can't just run and forget to monitor the players, but the flow of the game is benefited from you. You know, here's the key. Umpires go past the numbers if necessary to keep the game moving. The days of the umpire going to the electric force field at the hash are over. And you need to keep that in your mind if you're an umpire or you want to succeed at the umpire position. Wings are busy communicating, keeping the communication open with the bench areas. They're busy. They got 50 people, 60 people standing behind them, telling them what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why they should do it, and they never stop. So I mean, they're busy, and you can't expect them to keep control of the field. That's why it's important the umpire is up on all the enforcements, constantly acknowledging with your wings what's going on, constantly letting them know what's the beginning of the possession, what the down is. You're being very loud, very vocal, and that's it. The back judge is the official timekeeper, and he assists the referees with the press box. I mean, the back judge is seriously important when it comes to that clock. And believe me, as a white hat, nobody's more important to him than knowing that the back judge has got his back when it comes to the clock, no matter if it's the 30, no matter if it's the play clock, and no matter if it's the game clock, no matter if it's a timeout or whatever. Even though we know the umpire in our association does timeouts, the back judge is always that that guy who checks in. He's the one who has to run across the field with the orange hat on TV games. He's the one in charge of keeping track of the time. So just think of it that way. You know, you have an administrator, you have a manager, you have a communicator, and then you have somebody who's assisting everywhere else, the back judge. Umpire expectations. You know, I thought heavily about this, and I talked to Roscoe at least 3 to 4 times a month, and sometimes for hours. And I've spent hours watching film of them. And he always expresses to me that these are the expectations that you should always have as an umpire. Rule knowledge, off season and during the season. When I first started, people, oh, you want to be an umpire? All you got to do is spot the ball and learn Rule 10. Nonsense. You got to learn all the rules. Learn all the rules, not just Rule 10. If people say all you need is Rule 10, they don't know what they're talking about. They probably are not a very good umpire. Okay. Pre-game readiness. Participate in the pre-game. Watch film. Discuss game variables. Coaches' cards. You know, what does all that mean? If you got a game coming up and film is accessible, like we're lucky. Southern Nevada is not as lucky as we are in Northern Nevada. We have so many schools that participate with us in film. We have at least 15 to 20 films every week of all the games played, and it gives you an opportunity to watch next week's games, the opponents, understand their tendencies, understand the variables that you're going to do, discuss them in the pregame. A lot of times pregames tend to get carried away where you talk about personal stuff, or you grab ass a little bit, and then you might talk a little bit about what we're doing. Man, if you come into the pregame knowing what you're facing, you'll be surprised what you can get accomplished knowing the tendencies and being ready for the pregame. You know, and then the variables, being able to share that with your crew. And the last thing, coaches' cards. Umpires, make your coaches' cards. Don't even ask the why that. Just tell them, hey, I'll bring the cards. That's your job. You're the manager. You know everybody's participating. You know the coaches. You know the officials. You know where you're at. You know the time. Make the cards. Take that off the referee's plate. You know, that part of being a good crewmate. On-field pregame. Meet the head coach. Now, I know that some people take one of the other game officials with them, meet the coach. That's okay. Still, you being the umpire, you meet the head coach. Check the equipment. Learn the names of the centers. Take some snaps. You know, you go out there and you tend to stand around and you congregate. And a lot of times you have opportunities to take some snaps. Now, some teams leave and you don't get to take snaps. But if you can get in there, spot the ball, take some snaps, see the shoulder level of the offensive line, look at some of their tendencies when they lead, when they're pulling. I mean, it's like the best warm-up you can do is take some snaps before games. You never see it, hardly ever. I try to take snaps as soon as we hit the field, and I can talk to the coach with the white hat. If they're taking snaps, I'm taking snaps. You go over and you spot the ball for them. You ask the center how they want the laces. You learn their name. Right away, you're building confidence in the coach and the lineman of your presence. You know, all you're doing is spotting the ball, you're getting your position, and you're taking snaps. It sounds kind of really ridiculously easy, huh? But man, you build so much credibility with the offensive lines and the coaching staff, because they're not just an average referee or official going to stand around before the game. You're coming out here being involved, you're spotting the ball for us. You're building credibility. As an official, your credibility is everything, okay? So learning the players' names, the center's names. You know why? Because eventually you're going to have to tell them, hey, hold on a second, don't stop the ball. Wait for the whistle. Hey, Bob, John, Isaiah, hold it. Don't stop the ball until you hear his whistle. You can talk and communicate, and you don't have to stand over the ball to do it. And so it's important that you get that part across. Next one, pre-coin toss. You know, talk to the referee. Make sure he knows that you're going to be picking up this coin. People say, man, that's stupid. No, the key is he's going to flip the coin. He's already going to say, hey, they call heads. He's telling the players that you need to say it loud enough so my umpire can hear you, and you're going to repeat it. And then when they flip it, you get to bend down, pick it up so the referee can keep the eye contact and stay visible with everybody. He's visible with the players, with the coaches, with the crowd. He never has to bend down and pick. We don't want our white hat bending down, picking up something. You're right there. You're already going to be spotting the ball all game. Bend down, pick up the coin. You can either hand it to him or just hold it to him. And when you get together after the players leave, then you can hand it to him. You don't want to interrupt the referee when he's talking and doing his deal. That's just the key. Talk to each other, communicate. Make sure he knows that you're doing that for him. I know that sounds kind of petty or something little, man, but it shows credibility, the fact that you guys are together working as a team. The umpire covers the ball during all administrative actions, includes penalties, timeouts, team equipment problems, injuries, official timeout. Release the ball when the referee, blows in the ready for play. Here's the thing. We used to stand over the ball and do this. Well, we don't do that anymore. You go up, you set the ball down, you have your pre-snap routine. I'm very vocal. Okay, I walk back, I never turn my back on the ball. I get back in my position 6, sometimes 5, 6, 7. I never get more than 8 yards. I like being close up. It depends on those linebackers. I don't want to be in their way, but I like being tight in there because I'm not going to lie to you. I utilize my size as my benefit. I'm 6'6". I weigh 325 pounds. Yeah. Do I get run into? Yeah. Will I get run into again? It's only a matter of when. I will get ran into. But my point being is my presence. I'm so loud. I cover the ball. As soon as I get the ball on the ground, I walk my way back. If the center is getting close to snapping and we don't feel like the administrator is ready, I'll know his name and I'll back him out, or I'll hustle back up and get over the ball if I feel like the referee needs me to cover the ball. But it's important that you do that. You cover the ball during all administrative, especially when you're already in your position and there's a foul. You need to kill the clock and hustle in, and we'll talk a little more about that in a minute. Pre-snap spot, move into your pre-snap position, 6 to 9 yards from the line of scrimmage. You count the offensive players with the referee, you signal, and you're vocal. Now, some people do this. I don't know if you can see that. I do it straight out in front of me. That's the mechanic I was taught. That's the mechanic. I put above my eyes, my hands right above my eyes, right here. And I'm very vocal. I always acknowledge to my white hat, I gotcha. I got a boom box of a voice. The reason I say that is people say, well, Mark, it's a big crowd. He can't even hear you. Yeah, but those 3 linemen in front of me and these 2 linebackers next to me, they can hear me. And every one of those offensive linemen in front of me can hear me. So my presence is not only my visual presence, my voice presence is there. Everybody knows who I am, where I'm at, and what I'm doing. Now, am I trying to intimidate them? No, I'm just letting them know that I'm there. And I think that's important. That's part of that field presence that we'll talk a little more about in a little bit. But offensive players, you're counting off. That's your pre-snap. On a new possession, I will always tell my wing, the closest wing to, hey, new possession on the snap. New possession on the snap. That tells everybody it's a brand new possession and the clock's not running and we're on the snap. And right away, it kind of gets the wings. If you're on the headline side, automatically kind of make sure the box is set at 1. I mean, it kind of sends a chain reaction because of your vocal voice and the comment you're making. Hey, new possession, we're on the snap. Everybody knows it should be a first down. Everybody knows the clock shouldn't be running. So and not only that, you're building confidence with people around you because you're vocal and you're sure of yourself. There's a lot of confidence there. Identify your keys during the pre-snap, both the guards, the center, and the ball. People say, well, you only have to watch 3 people. That's great. You got wings that have the tackle and they have trips on their side, and then they got all the stuff going on. And people say, well, umpire, you only have 3 guys. They're right. You only have 3 guys. Occasionally, you might drift off to it. If they have trips on one side or the other, you might drift to a tackle because you've communicated with the white hat that he's got that other tackle. So you might drift over and your eyes might drift a little bit to make sure you're eyeing his tackle. But you need to know your keys, and you need to make sure you can see your keys. And I'll get to that further on too. All pre-snap fouls and timeouts, the umpire needs to bust in and cover the ball. We talked about it a little bit ago. Prevent any action to take place past the game stoppage. And it's so important. I see so many umpires that, yeah, there's a foul and they just stand there for a little bit and then they'll walk in and look for the ball. And you need to get in there, hustle in. I'm not saying you need to sprint and run over people, but you need to move with a purpose, hustle in, kill the clock, and make sure you're securing the ball. It could be a timeout. It could be a penalty. You might have to enforce an offside or encroachment or a false start. But that's the tempo of the game that you're creating. You're killing the clock and you're getting in and doing what you need to do. So those are like the umpire expectations just to get started on here. Somebody once told me that if I went over everything that we do on every single play, we'd be here for a couple months and possibly a couple years because you learn as you go. I'm hoping that some of these little expectations that I'm giving you are just enough to help you get into the position, because we have a lot of new guys, especially here in Northern Nevada, that are getting this position down. You know, alignment, as you look, I wanted to point this out. So here's the center. I'm always dead on. I like being on, and I'm gonna tell you why. This is a running lane, this is a running lane, and this is a running lane. These are running lanes. So if you stand like on his inside shoulder right here, you're actually standing in a running lane. He's standing in a running lane. Here, you're not so much, you're not in a running lane. Now, you have to work to see the ball sometimes because the nose tackle's got his big ass in the way. Yeah, that's why you crouch a little bit. And sometimes you have to look over him. You know, it helps being 6'6" to look over. It doesn't help being 6'6" when I have to crouch and look between their legs for the ball. But the key here is when you stay in the middle, you can see the ball, but you also have a good line on the shoulder level. This is something you really got to get used to as an umpire, is shoulder level. When their shoulder level is like this high and it stays that high the whole play, that means they're not going to do a whole lot of cheating. If it goes lower, then you know it's going to hit, you know, they're blocking below the waist. If it goes higher, they're going to get beaten, they're going to grab. So, but if they stay low and they drive, then good shoulder level takes a lot off us making calls. Just look where he's at. He's a little on the outside. Here's another one. I picked this one out because you'll see the running lane. Like, just picture where the ball is. The ball is on that hatch. Now, if we go, this is the same play. He's out here, kind of mid of the tackle. He could be like almost shade of that cheek there, the tackle's butt. But I want to show you where, if he was standing right here, watch my cursor as I start this play, he wouldn't get bumped. Here he gets bumped. You know, he get bumped. If he was standing in the middle of the field, he wouldn't ever got bumped. He still could still see the play. So I just wanted to show you, demonstrate, you have natural running lanes. Plays are built to run on these natural running lanes. You know, don't stand in them. Try to prevent that. You still got to be able to see the ball. You got to watch your keys. This is a great alignment here. I mean, he's in this lane right here, but man, he's got a great view of the ball. His shoulders are square. Just a real nice stance there. And here's another perfect. And like he's about 5.5, 6 yards. You know, and I'll tell you why I like that. This is Andrew Sidarius, one of our longtime officials, passed away a couple of years back. You know, when you're down that goal line area, there's not a lot of room behind you, and you know all the action is going to take place right dead square in front of you. So you want to hug it a little bit. You want to get a little closer. You got to remember, these guys, these defenders, these linebackers, they wouldn't play back here because they're not going to make the tackle back here. They want to make the tackle here. So they're going to line up closest to that goal line as possible to prevent that guy from getting here. That allows you to move up and get more in the mix, and just know that the receivers are going to need all this area around and behind you to catch a ball. So just remember field position and goal line. But Andrew does a really good job in his alignment here. You know, the umpire needs to have the ball in their view at all times. Never turn your back. You know, learn the center's name, communicate with them prior to the snap. You know, and you know, you're talking, you're communicating with people. Just never turn your back. Sometimes you have to walk through the back of the defense. I see so many of our newer officials, some of our longtime officials, they turn around, turn their back on the ball. Can't do it. You know, the thing about it too is if there is this is once again, if we have a snap that we need to cover, we have a penalty or something, it's important that we get to cover the ball. You know, you don't have to kill yourself to get there. Just make sure that you get there to cover it. You're not walking. Walking gives the umpire a really terrible name. Even if it's moving with a purpose, even if it's a little hop, just try to get there gradually a little quicker than a real slow dragging walk. This is a real good picture. Rodney Thompson, one of our officials here, does a real good job. You know, he fights, he kind of works his way through, but you can tell that he, you know, with all the new offenses, you get set and then they turn and look. And now it's a waiting game. And, you know, they run this hurry up wait offense, I love to call. They like to hurry up to wait. But then out of nowhere, you know, they call a timeout, and then Rodney kills the clock. He kind of hops on, but he runs into traffic. But at least he makes the effort to get there. And that's the key, is making an effort to get there to shut it down, because you don't want any extra stuff going on. Mobility, the umpire needs to be actively using their voice, real loud voice, boombox style, you know, and their mobility during the game to create and maintain that strong field presence. Being active, you will eliminate dead ball issues between players. I do a couple things. I'm a big guy, I get it. I do move around the pile. I kind of circle sometimes, depending, because if you go straight on, you got people in between you. You're not going to be able to break up anything, especially if there's a pile. So I tend to work around the pile. And I'm going to show you one downfield one that really looks good. But like there's a tackle, tackle right at the line of scrimmage, a big pile. I tend to work my way around the pile using my big voice. Now, you know, what am I saying? Plays over, easy up, plays over. But I'm using a big voice, and I'm coming in from a different direction than straight on. And the reason I do that is because I really feel that I was a player. I played at every single level. If I keep gaining an advantage, throwing a cheap shot here and there, I did it because I didn't care. My job was to protect the quarterback. I didn't care if I got caught or not. I figured I get a penalty, oh well. And the kids are no different today. They do the same thing. By getting in there, you're going to see some of the cheap stuff that's going to get thrown. And this is the next play is another good shot. I wish all our film were set up like this is set up here, because it's so easy to see. But this is a running play, and Rodney does a real good job showing his mobility and knowing that this is the modern umpire. This is today's umpire. See where the hash is? That's no longer an electric fence. He turns, pivots. I mean, stops the clock, and now he's going to go into the boundary to get the ball. I mean, separate the numbers. See, he's talking to somebody there. I mean, that's umpiring. If you think you're going to stand out in the middle field and just set the ball and be a fixture because we can hide you because you're new, it's going to change. That's over. Those days are over. And that's what you all have to remember. And that's what you should expect from each other. The last couple plays this is a pass play. You just saw the run play. Pass play, it's important that the umpire gradually moves to the line of scrimmage. Now I'm throwing a lot at you, but this is just something it's part of our mechanics. You gradually move. You don't run, you don't sprint, you gradually walk to the front. Now there's some conferences, and in college, I know they tend to, you stay put, you know, high school, it's a different story. You don't want to get directly to the line of scrimmage, but you want to get about 2.5 yards from the line of scrimmage. You want to work your way gradually, especially if it's a long developing pass play. They get set. And then you pivot. So it's just gradually, nothing like you're running a race or anything. You want to gradually do it. One last time. It shows you that just you're running, your eye contact staying on your keys. And that's the key, eye contact on your keys. You're not watching the ball. Now that's just some of the mechanics I wanted to go over today. I can't teach you all the rules, and I can't teach you all the mechanics in an hour. We wanted you to walk away with something substance, so I'm going to talk a little bit about offensive holding, lineman play. There's lots of holding in football, but you know, holding is the most common penalty in football. The only other foul called more than holding is false start. In college and in high school and in pro, holding, you know, is behind false start. In all those categories, holding is the play that offensive holding is tops in all those fields other than false start. You know, judging the length of blocking is arguably the most difficult aspect of officiating a football game. On any given play, there's 6 to 10 blocks. Some of them go unobserved by the 5-man crew. Consequently, holding and illegal use of hands may be the most problematic foul of football. because there's so many forms of hand contact between players that consistently cause a personal collision. I think it's important to understand that defense has a right to push, pull, grasp to get to the runners and how they use their hands. But for the most part, for a holding foul to be called, a player must prevent an opponent from possibly making a play by using a legal technique. In other words, there must be a demonstration of a restriction. Like the restriction is big. The key to this whole thing is restriction. If an opponent is taken to the ground, and obviously there's a restriction. If I take somebody to the ground, I take them to the ground, it's going to be a restriction. Less frequently is the pullover, in which a blocker pulls an opponent over himself, making it looks like he's getting ran over. We're going to get into all the categories, but just know that holding can be called on every play. And I can talk about the penalties, and I can talk about, hey, taking somebody to the ground, and I can show you these plays I'm going to, and you can say, well, every play's holding, I'm going to call it. You have to understand that you can't call holding on every play. You have to use judgment. And the categories of holding will help you, but you have to train yourself to recognize the action. And what I mean by action is, the crazy things, the unnatural things, the dippings of the shoulders, guys coming upfield and all of a sudden they're dipping their shoulders. Funny running. Here's this athlete running and all of a sudden he's running funny because his whole body's getting pulled a different way. There's so many different things that you need to remember when it comes to holding, but they're so obvious when they punch in the mouth when you can tell. Shoulder dips, there's an arm bar that prevents him, open field, grabs by the shirt. A guy's running and all of a sudden he gets jerked down. There's so many things but you need to train your eyes to recognize the action. And then you need to use your judgment on how you're going to call them. And hopefully these categories can help you. The grab and restrict, remember the key word there is restrict. The hook and restrict, and we'll go through the hook. The jerk and restrict, the takedown, the tackle, and the last but not least, but not often called, is the pullover reverse takedown. The grab and restrict, the blocker usually gets beat and grabs the defender, but there must be a material restriction for the foul to occur. So often you see people block and they grab the shirt inside, but then they let them go. People say, well, he was holding me. Well, he also let you go, So it's got to be a restriction where you have to judge it and it prevents this person from making the play. This first play, and I want to bear with me, these film is really old, but after talking with Roscoe, they're very demonstrated and they're very explicit. They really point out the holds. Top of the screen at the 30, right up here, you're going to see a hold, and he's going to try to get away, and then you see the pull. Now the film's kind of blurry there, so you didn't really get a great, but you see 3 flags, so it's obviously you got seen. Earl has a pair of these, just so everybody knows, our president. So now you're going to see the hole again from the end zone. It's over here at the 30. And you're going to see a little more of a restriction. He's going to get away. The ball carrier comes his way. Now you can see the unnatural movement. He feels like he's dragging a safe, the way his shoulder dips and he's trying to get away. And then here's a television view where they do a close-up. And this one it's really clear. You can see the hold. And right there, you see the restriction, pulls a shoulder pad out. It's really clear. So that's, and then you have the last one. Yeah, you see that's the clear restriction, the clear grab and restriction. The next one is the hook and restriction. This takes place when a blocker's arm goes outside the frame of the defender. If the defender plays through the hook, it's not a foul. As an example, this would be like a tackle hook on a defensive end on a pass play. Also be careful that the rip move that the defensive tackle uses could actually set up a hook. A lot of defensive players are taught the rip, which is they fire through from an underhand motion from their hip and fires it through to the middle of their body, up through their shoulder in front of their face. That's what a rip is. So here's another play 70. It's a right guard. It's just here. Once again, it's film's kind of foggy here, but we'll get a better view. And he beats him to the inside. So what he does, he hooks him and then takes him to the ground. Granted, it's a turnover and they're going to decline the penalty, but it's still a restriction to hook, and then he took him to the ground. Here's a better view of it. 70s right here. You can see this guy beats him to the inside across his body. And he hooks him from up on top of his shoulder. So here's another view of it. See how he hooked his shoulder, brought him to the ground, right at the point of attack too. So and the closer one. See, he could have made the tackle if he doesn't hold him. Does everybody see that? He makes the tackle if he doesn't do the hook on him. So that's why it's so important to know the categories. And as you learn the categories, you're going to be able to identify them more often, and when they are more prevalent to you when it happens. This foul, the jerk and restrict, this foul happens quickly, and usually on pass plays. It also can happen on the point of attack on a running play. The most common time is it happens in a quick pass or a screen pass. After the snap, the offensive player sets up for the pass, in the pass block, and engages the defender and jerks him in a downward motion, and then almost to the point where he throws him. And it's pretty common that offensive guys will throw him. That's a jerk and throw, jerk and restriction. 55 is the center, and see the throw. He'll engage him, and then he'll throw him, jerk him down, and then throw him to the ground. And all he's doing is using the momentum of the defensive player to move forward. He's just now using his momentum against him. Got a really good view. You often hear everybody, well, that's not a foul. Why'd you call a foul? You can't throw the defender to the ground. The takedown. Now the takedown is similar to the tackle, but it's not as obvious. The act is, the question may look legal at first, but when examining the block closer, he has fouled. A good example is when a blocker blocks in the direction the defender is going and then restricts the defender at the last moment. So he's blocking him, maybe trying to block him past the play, but then he's not going to get him past the play, so he'll tackle him to the ground so he doesn't make the play. The center, number 59, and he gets beat, so he tackles him. People say, well, God, the defender went to the ground. If you look closely, you can tell that the offensive guy grabs him right around the collar and pulls him to the ground. And it's a good call. And remember, if he doesn't make that, if he doesn't hold him, what happens? He makes the tackle. The next one is the tackle. Just like it says, the blocker tackles his opponent. More times than not, this takes place when the blocker gets beat. His only option is to tackle. These fouls are seldomly occur, but when they do, they smack you right in the face when it happens. Believe me, it does. You'll be sitting there watching it. You'll be watching your keys, and all of a sudden, what the hell was that? And you thought, well, when's offense is tackling the defense? So that's what it is. He tackled him instead of blocking him. Here's a good one from the left guard. Right there. Grabs him right by the ankle and tackles him by the leg. He gets beat. The key with all these techniques or all these holdings is the blocker's doing what? He's getting beat. When you get beat, you cheat.
Hey, Mark, this is Doug. The other thing is these all have a effect on the play. So just because you guys see this stuff and it might be a big hold, right? There might be a grab and restrict or, a hook and restrict. But if there's no material effect on the play, are you wanting that? You're wanting them to pass on that? Talk to them? Unless it's egregious, like a tackle or something.
On an egregious like a tackle, we're going to call it. He's going to take him to the ground. There's an injury involved, sure.
Gotcha.
That's going to happen. If it's a hold way far away and it's not as egregious, they don't go to the ground. And
so we could have
these are better.
Three aspects, right? The categories, the grab and restrict, and
egregious
point of attack or effect on the play.
Correct.
Thanks.
So one last time. Yeah, the point is if he doesn't get held or doesn't get tackled, he makes the play. Point of attack, like Doug said, and we get it. That's good. The last one is I don't have a film for it, a play for it, but we'll talk a little bit about it. The pullover and reverse takedown. This sets up looking like a block, a good block. Next thing you know, what appears to you is the offensive player is getting run over. Looks like the defensive player is just kicking the daylights out of him. But the critical thing to observe is the defender's feet. So all of a sudden they lose their footing and they land flat on their face right on top of the offensive guy. Then you know it's once again, it's funny running, it's unnatural movement. Why is the defender trying to get a quarterback going to go dive and jump on, land on top of a guy he just ran over? So it's something to keep in mind. I don't have a play for that one, but it's definitely our least one, the least category that we would call, but it does happen and it will happen. I did have a couple plays I wanted to show. One play I want to show you that it's important because of the injury aspect. Here is the offensive guy loses his helmet, but he's the one who creates the action of holding. Now we'll watch it. It's the center. We're going to watch it from two different angles. So he's going to take this guy to the ground, but there's a whole bunch of other people's legs involved that, and we get the call there, but here's the same play from so the reason I did this is even though it's away from the play, just a minute ago, Doug talked about it, had no plan to play. We're in high school football. It's not college. We're not playing for an NFL championship. There's injuries that are going to happen with stuff like this. Here's the center taking this guy to the ground, and look at all the legs that are involved over here could get tangled up and get injured. The key here is we get it. It's a good call. And in high school, we're going to protect the kids. Taking kids to the ground, injuries, we do have to understand that, yeah, it didn't have an effect on this play, but it could have an effect on an injury, especially something like this. And these two guys, I guess, had gone at it all game, a little bit really tough aggressively, but we do get it. I just wanted to kind of point that out. We'll watch it from the kind of the beginning again and see how it ends up. But I think the umpire does a really good job here managing this, because somebody's going to get hurt if we let it go just because it's on the other side of the field, away from the ball. So, good job on that one. Okay, we talked about when to call holding, but we have to talk about when not to call holding. this is something that goes back to your judgment, goes back to, you heard the term, maybe you should hold that flag just a hair longer or a second longer. I think it's important that we talk about these, when do you not throw a holding call? When you see it happen right when the runner is tackled simultaneously. When you see it happen right when he runs out of bounds, right at the running out of bounds, and there's a hole right there. He's already ran out, right about to run out. I don't think you're calling that. On a fair catch, I mean, maybe you should hold it just a hair longer. You don't want to have a holding on a fair catch. Nothing should have happened, unless it's egregious at like at the line of scrimmage where the guy's holding him and then takes him to the ground. You see that all the time. The kickoff, the punt team is running now for the guy who hooks up at the line of scrimmage and then rides on the entire field and then throws him on the ground. Okay, you might have a holding there, but if it's simultaneously with a fair catch, I think we're going to hold on to that one. Action occurs after a forward pass is thrown beyond the line of scrimmage. So quarterback throws the ball and you got your guard and your center and they're holding, creating a hold. Ball's already gone. It has no impact on the play. You're not calling it. Action that occurs away from the point of attack when not in with close line play, or there's an injury, close line play, the injury like we just saw in the previous play we just looked at. A free kick resulted in a touchback. I think you got two players hooked up and they're going at each other. One might be holding them. I want to talk to them, but you're not going to call it on a touchback. If a scrimmage kick simultaneously becomes a touchback, simultaneously to a touchback, I think you're going to hold your flag, right? You don't want to call it. You don't want to slow the game down on a judgment on your part just because we could have held the flag. If the action is part of a double team block. Now, I didn't talk with any about this, your keys, but when you're in your position and you have action going on in front of you, so you have a guard, a center, and a guard, and the right guard and the center double team the nose tackle. When you see that action, your eyes are going to leave that action and go to your other key, the blocker who's on his own, or you might go beyond to the tackle because maybe the quarterback's rolled out, and now the next person, the next defender in that tackle there are going to be the most detrimental to that quarterback. Maybe that's where that hold will take, especially because it's backside and your guard. If he was uncovered, chances are he's just setting up, helping out the backside tackle, or he's picking up the linebacker who is blitzed from the backside. But now your eyes have drifted to the right and you have that tackle because there's a double team right there. Now, if you don't see him roll, then your eyes are going to bounce right to your other guy and watch him because he might go low on somebody. He could do anything. But you have to understand, if you see a double team, don't stay on the double team. And then you're going to get people like your defensive line saying they're holding me. No, they're double teaming. You're a badass, so they're using two guys to block you. That's what I tell them. I mean, you're an animal, so that's why they're using two guys to block you. Well, those two guys are holding me. I'm not going to call holding unless he splits them, and we'll talk about that here, next one down, but the bottom line is, you want to get off of them and get to somebody. And like I said, unless they escape the double team, then you call the holding. It's hard because you get so used to looking at your keys. But the key is you want to get used to looking at your keys, because prior to getting to know your keys, you get used to watching the ball, which is the worst thing you can do. When you watch all the film we have in our library on Huddle, please watch the umpires' builds of their hat when there's a wide running play or a pass play to the outside, because the build of the cap will not lie where their eyes are at. I guarantee you're gonna find most of our umpires will turn their head as soon as we have a wide running play, and you'll see the build of that cap turn. You can tell right away they're ball watching and not watching their keys. The key is to watch your guys until you can release to somewhere else. If there's a lot of action going on, you're there. Now, as the play goes wide and you see it, you can see it peripheral vision, you can see it. Then, of course, if all your players sweep like a pool or try to finish the blocks, of course you're going to go with them. But the point is on a double team, as soon as it happens, get off and get to your next key. if a defensive player uses the rip technique and puts the offensive player in a position that would normally be holding, unless the player's feet is beat, understand they're going to, and they take the defender to the ground, then chances are you don't have holding, because he put it in there with his rip. When he came through the block and he ripped, he got tangled up. It created an automatic arm bar that caused him to go to the ground. However, you know, the problem is you don't, a lot of times there's so much going on, you don't see all of it. So it's important that you keep track of your keys. The last one is if a blocker pushes down or falls on a defender whose momentum is carrying him to the ground. You don't want to call it now. If he prevents the guy from getting up, now you got holding. And you might even have a personal foul if he is so egregious about keeping him on the ground. So it's important that you know that. So many people go, well, I just fall on him. Well, you got to get off of him. You can't just lay on him. And you as an umpire, that's where your presence in the middle is going to curve all that nonsense that some of these linemen do. And that's the key to that umpire, is you got to be able to take charge. You got to be able to use your voice, have commands, and get them to follow through. You know, as it's been said, holding can be called on every play. The key to calling the foul for holding is being able to put together players' actions into one of the 6 categories, then appearing to the philosophies and placing the potential fouls in the 6 categories of your holding calls will become more consistent. Now I'm going to tell you, what is the holding categories really, you know, what does that really mean? Well, I think if you're the umpire and you call it and they ask, well, what did he do? I mean, the wings, they get one thing from when is there a penalty. Well, what did he do? Who's it on? Why did they call it? What did he do? And the coach is true. They want to know what he did, so when he comes off, they can correct it. Now, I want to think that's what they want, because when I was a coach, that's what I wanted. But I think they just want to get in our ear too, to hold us accountable. You know, well, what did he do? What did he do? It's easy to say, well, it was a material restriction, coach, or he hooked him, or he tackled him, coach, or it was a takedown, or he grabbed, jerked him, and then he threw him, coach. I mean, it's so easy to put him in one of those categories when you tell the wing on the 0-2, hey, it was a grab and jerk, he threw him to the ground. Now, at least the wing on that sideline can go over and say, yeah, your guy threw him to the ground, coach. He grabbed him, jerked him to the ground. You know, at least it takes some credibility to your call, and it allows your wings to be able to explain on the sideline. Because the worst thing can happen, I'll find out for you, coach, and then they never get an answer. Now the wings' credibility is shot. Your credibility in the middle is shot, and that coach is pissed with you. He might be the best coach in the world. He might be one of our stellar coaches that work with us the best. But if he asks you what happened, or, you know, and we tell him nothing, and you can't put it in one of these categories, or you can't explain what the holding was, then you lose credibility as an umpire. And you have to be consistent with it. You have to be consistent with what you're calling. So, and one thing I wanted to add is that's all I got with this. I'm going to bring up some plays.
Mark, can I add something on the when not to call holding?
Yeah, go ahead. You have a comment.
Yeah, so the great presentation, all the categories, all stuff. But one thing I would add on when not to call holding is when the player being fouled makes the tackle. And sometimes you won't see it a lot, but sometimes you'll see the foul and you'll see the player actually break the hold and make the tackle. We do not want a flag down on that. There was no material restriction on the play, like Doug was saying earlier, or when his teammate makes the tackle right at that same area. There was still no material effect on the play. That's when we have to have that discipline. And it took me a few years to learn this, to hold that flag for another second or two. Wait and evaluate. After you see the foul, what did it do? What did it do to the play? A late flag is often much better and much preferable than a quick flag. You know, people complain about, oh, that flag was late. No, that official was evaluating the impact that foul had on the play, decided that did have a material restriction, and we're going to throw that foul. So just wait. If you can wait another second, half a second, it will give you a lot more information to process. So you can make better calls. And then we don't want to call holding plays on something that didn't have an effect on the play.
Hey, thank you, Steve. And the thing that I wanted to press here, closing in our hour, as a white hat, you have a lot on your plate, administrating the game. And like I talked at the beginning of the presentation, as an umpire, it's your job to be the enforcer out there. Not only are you checking with on every play, it's one thing I didn't highlight was equipment. I don't want to send a player out of the game for crappy equipment. If there's something we can't fix on the field, like missing a knee pad or a thigh pad or a hip pads or a chin strap, stuff like that, something that's essential, I don't send them off. If I can pull the shirt down over their back pad, if I can fix their shoulder, if I can button a chin strap for them, I do it. If I can remind them about their mouthpiece. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. And one of the biggest games I've done in a long time, the Geico game this past December, I sent a player out for a mouthpiece, but I told him 10 times to put it in. I gave him an opportunity 10 times before I just stopped the game and sent him out. And so, I mean, it's our job to keep the game flowing. And no one came to watch us. No one came to hear me. No one came to see the officials. They came to see the kids play. And one of the questions that I got was like, don't you think sometimes you're over the top? You're too loud, or you're constantly moving around, or don't? I don't. I do youth games, and I do 8-man games, and I do varsity games. I do them all the same way. And I'll tell you why. It's because I think the kids deserve it. I don't think I should take a break just because I'm doing Pop Warner games. I don't think I should be taking a break just because they're 8-man football. If you're gonna sign up and take the game, then you give the game everything you can. You know, I refer to Roscoe a lot because Roscoe, he taught me one thing that you need to know. You can learn the rules and you can learn mechanics. You know, we can teach you all that, but we can't teach you to be a good person. And a good person does things the right way all the time. And I'm not saying my way is the right way. What I'm saying is I'm going to give it my effort every time. You know, my way of effort is my values and my principles. You know, my values and principles are different than others. But I really believe as the umpire, if you're going to make a commitment to be an official in football and you take the time to learn all these rules and get into the book and then go out on the field and when people tell you to shove that yellow flag up your ass, then you're committed. And you need to give that every time you step on the field, no matter if you're doing a Pop Warner football game or you're doing a varsity, you know, a 5A game. So that concludes my presentation.